How did you get the deal? Because now Grab probably has their choice, like you're saying. So, take us into, what none of us have access to is how does that board decide to go with Brad as opposed to Goldman?
They hire advisors to advise them.
Like an Allen and Company, like a bank?
Yeah. And ultimately, it takes courage on the part of a board, because if you think about what a board, the old saying, you don't get fired hiring McKinsey, right? You don't get fired hiring Goldman Sachs. You don't get fired hiring Morgan Stanley. And let me be very clear. Goldman and Morgan Stanley are great partners of us. They're extremely smart. They're extremely capable, and they will have important roles to play in the process. It doesn't mean that their roles should not evolve. We're going to re-architect this in a way. My North Star is very clear. What is in the best interest of founders, companies, and employees of the ecosystem that has been so good to me?
I mean, that's where it should start, right? Those are the people who got the product, got the opportunity to your desk. So why are we giving all the spoils to some other group of people? So when they said to you, hey, Brad, why should we go with you as opposed to, one of these banks, and you're talking to the advisors, what was your pitch? Because I do know you offered some very specific things that maybe some other SPACs have not offered. So and each of these SPACs, correct me if I'm wrong, you as the promoter, which is a weird term, but it is what
Sponsor.
it is. Sponsor. Okay. You as the sponsor, sort of a weird term, but better. You as the sponsor, you get to define the terms. So it's not a standard term. So what were the terms you pitched?
Well, first, like any great product, like what we've done over the last year is to deconstruct the entire value chain of an IPO and to say, like, this isn't about flipping a SPAC. This is about building a product like I've built in three other companies, like Rich has built it. We took a Zillow approach. What is the iBuy of the IPO? How can you deconstruct that? So part of it, right? Chris Conforti joined our team. Chris built over 100 IPO books for Goldman Sachs, right? So the guts of an IPO is, right, to bring together two sides of the marketplace, the company and the world's best public market investors. So knowing those public market investors, Will Danoff and Sanu at Fidelity, knowing Tony Kim at BlackRock, knowing, just go through the list. Those are your buyers. So having trust and relationships, and Altimeter has 15 years of trust and relationships with these portfolio managers because we sit on the same side. We compare notes with them about public companies that we're looking at. Chris Conforti has a decade of experience with them building books at Goldman Sachs. So we know how to build a better book, how to price, how to allocate, how to do those things. And so from our perspective, right, that is the guts. But now you can expand the aperture, Jason, right, on the capital markets team. So we brought Derek Wong, for example, on board. Derek was the head of IR and PR for Tableau, right? So helping these companies understand how to tell the narrative, how to present the narrative, right? But the important thing is this, like, why? Number one, what is the objective of most companies? Give me the best possible public market investors at the fairest price with the least amount of distraction. And that's what we delivered. We delivered a better cap table at a fairer price with a hell of a lot less distraction than they would have gotten in a typical experience. So we're, I think, a great partner to them.
I noticed 2 points. You locked up your shares for 3 years.
So our sponsor promote is locked up for 3 years. I'm never going to bring a company public that I'm not willing to lock up my sponsor promote in, because frankly, I want to bring the best of the best, right? I'm not trying. There are a lot of places that SPACs will offer great alternatives to companies, right? Like, for example, you think of, Lucid, which is an interesting company that went public by way of SPAC with Michael Klein. Right. Or you think of, these vertical takeoff companies, Reid Hoffman's doing just incredible stuff.
Joby.
With really interesting companies that I would love to see exist. But that's not what Altimeter does.
So the really fanciful moonshots, no.
Right. And and guess what? Chamath is better at that. Reid is better at that. So they will own that category in the capital markets. Right. What we're very focused on is what I've done for 20 years, which is focused on the world's best internet and software companies, gaming and fintech. Right. And for a select few every year, we're going to help them go full stack on the Altimeter platform. But we'll participate in 40 other IPOs where we'll be an expert advisor on their traditional bank IPO, like we did with Snowflake, where we helped to anchor that, or like Roblox, where we helped cornerstone the direct list and work close with Dave and Mike as they brought that company public by way of direct list. We're not a SPAC hammer, only trying to pound a SPAC nail. We are.
What do you think of these, what I'll call questionable inventory that are going out via SPACs? For every, company that seems really legitimate, you're going to have a Fisker, you're going to have a Nikola. I'm saying these names. I'm not going to put it to you to say these names, but I think those two are, either frauds or destined to be zeros or just disastrous investments. That's my personal belief. But you are doing a SPAC, Chamath's doing SPACs, and so people put these all in one bucket.
Totally.
So how do you think about the low quality? You can pick which ones you think are low quality. I just gave two names that I think are extremely low quality, that I think wouldn't go from, you could take a zero off their valuations and I wouldn't buy them at $500 million.
The first thing,
let alone $5 billion.
The first thing I would say is, and I heard you say it on CNBC earlier today, right, that stocks are not lottery tickets. I've said this on CNBC. I've tweeted about it. There's not enough diligence going on by way of investors. They think this is all get rich quick schemes. SPACs are dangerous. I said on CNBC a few weeks ago, I got a lot of grief for it, that we're short a lot of SPACs and a lot of D-SPACs because we run a hedge fund. Because you have misalignment, you have average companies at best that are overpriced. This is buyer beware, right? Buyer beware. And I am 100% in your camp on, we need to have full and fair disclosure, right? We need to have enforcement. I started, back in 1997, 98, little known fact, I was the regulator of the Indiana Securities Division. I ran the Indiana Secretary of State's office. And some of the stuff I see going on, promoting, et cetera, I just think is on the line or crossing the line. So Altimeter is exclusively focused on taking the best best companies in the world public and partnering them with the world's best institutional investors. Right. Institutional investors, and giving a more curated IPO to the best companies. I think about like Mongo, Twilio, Okta, companies that were in our private portfolio, right? That I wanted to own more of as they went public. I wanted to be a great partner as they went public, but now we can to those types of companies that are in our portfolio or our friends' portfolios.